Is the cost of yarn holding back your creativity? Listen as I share some budgeting ideas.
Hi friends, just thought I'd show you my sock and my yarn, but more importantly, my project bag. This is the Scraw Bucket from my friend Tracy, who's in Germany. This is her design pattern and my handspun yarn. So isn't that fun? And it's fully reversible. I have a plastic container in here to stiffen it up a bit, but my sock goes in there and my knitting goes in there, and then it sits on the floor beside me. And I'll just take this one and stick it in there like that. And if I was going somewhere, I'd put it all inside and tighten it up, and there we go. So something for knitting that I didn't have to pay a lot for. Hi, I'm Doll from Doll Can Create. You can too. And here I am today talking about budget and knitting or crocheting. You can substitute either one. I have my notes in front of me so I don't get too far off track, but this is it. Knitting on a budget, down and dirty. How do we do it? Let's put our toolkits together, shall we? One of the early things you can do if you're serious about knowing your costs, I'm just fixing my cushion here, the cost of what you're doing, and if budget is a concern, is to track everything. Write down the store you bought it at, the quantity, the kind, and the price. And then when you go to get more, then you can, right? You can check back into your log. And I'm going to show you a couple of different books I have here to do that. Now this is a traveler's notebook that I purchased from Staples. And inside are little notebooks. Now I haven't used it a lot, but a simple notebook like this where you can write things down, right? Write down the price, make your columns very budget friendly. And I'll put the link to an Amazon store that I've just begun that will give you some ideas about traveler's notebooks and the refills for them, because the refills are not that expensive. They're easier to put in here. The other thing you can do is use a regular store book, school book that you would get, a regular little notebook. Anything that you have. I have many journals and I use journals for different things, but I picked up one and I did get this on Amazon, and I'm so happy because it's manufactured by Amazon.ca in Bolton, Ontario, and I know that's backwards for you. I'm sorry. So the question's on the back, where did I put that wool? So you can write down where you stored it. Who did I buy it for? Well, that could be important when we're thinking budget. And what was I going to knit with it? Now, sometimes we just buy yarn because, you know, it feels really, really good. But it's also in here. This is written by Sue Mesrother. And it's got, as a knitting journal, who is it for? The measurements, wool required, brand of wool purchased from, price per ball, actual cost, needle size, tension. So all of those things. Where and in what did you stash your wool? So where did you put it? And it's got different areas for different projects. Project 2, Project 10. How many projects? 11. I think there's 12 in here. Oh, 13, 14. And then there's a place for counting rows if you want to do it that way. Now I use Knit Companion on my iPad. I really like it because I just find it easy to go back to. It's got a place for other notes that you can write down. And then it talks about the author and her other books. But that's another way that you can track what you're spending and what it's for. You know what I mean. I'm sure you know what I mean. So what about your projects? What kind of stash busting projects are you working on? Things like shawls and doing stripes, like a scrappy sock. I haven't done a scrappy sock. My socks are all done with my hand-dyed sock yarn, basically, like this. Isn't that pretty? That's the lavender or lilac. It's got a tiny bit of blue that comes through. It's not meant to be stripy, it's just meant to be pretty. And that's the butterfly pattern, I believe, that I found on Ravelry. Really, really like that. Shawls, buckets. I'm using leftover sock yarn for my next project bag. So this is costing me nothing. Now I know that her pattern, Tracy's pattern, is there, and I'll put a link down below. But it's not very much. It really isn't. But the yarn is from my stash. It's a great stash buster. And it's 2 threads together, right? That one looks like it's coming apart. 2 threads together, and then when one runs out, you just add another. Because you can see I've added different ones here, right? So that's kind of a stash buster that I'm working on right now. I also started Tracy's new scarf pattern, but I'm doing it, I'm doing it in hand spun, and I'm not too sure whether I like the design of the pattern a lot. I'm just not sure this is the yarn I want to use. Something to think about when you're doing stash busting. Modular, the memory squares that you can do, granny squares if you're a crocheter. But use up what you have. I've got way too much fiber and yarn sitting around. And if you're an avid spinner, knitter, crocheter, you probably have tons, right? You have got it stashed here and there and under here and in another corner. You can do dishcloths if you've got lots of the cotton. Right? You need the cotton for the dishcloths. I can do cloths with wool, but it doesn't work the same as the cotton does. So there you go. And the shawls, anything with stripes. Anything with stripes. A 1-row scarf would work really well too. The Sophie scarf that people make would work really well too. Also, when we're thinking about stash busting and we're thinking of working within a budget, what about free patterns? And there's a ton of free patterns out there. Now, I've mentioned Tracy before, the Passionate Spinner. She has a free sock pattern on Ravelry. It's called Sock 411. And I believe there's links in there on how to do some of the things that she does. It's for every size. Great. And it's free. So there's lots of free. Tin Can Knits is another one. Ravelry is a great place when you're looking, say, for a stash busting free pattern. And when you put the word free in, it'll come up with all the free patterns. It's nice if you have a favorite designer. I have a couple, and I do like to support them. So I will buy or pay for a pattern if it's something I really like and I want to support their work, because that's important too. So that comes into that whole budget. What is the budget for this project? Maybe you have no budget because you're using everything out of your stash, and that's great. Another thing you can do is upcycling yarn. So you can go to a thrift store, any thrift store, and you might find a really nice sweater, alpaca, merino, very soft, very pretty, not felted, and you can unravel it. Now the trick with that is that it can't be seamed. It has to be knit in the round. So you bring it home and you steam it flat, right? And then from the top down as you can, cut the sleeves, get rid of the collar, whatever that is. Or if it's a cardigan, get rid of the buttons, and unravel it. Put it on a skein winder or on a nitty knotty. I have a large yarn stretcher that I would roll it onto, and then again refresh it. So you're going to wash it. You're going to put it in some soapy water, make sure it's clean, and that should take all the kinks out of it, right? Because you don't want to be knitting with all the kinks. But that's another way to cut back, especially if you're looking for a luxurious fiber like a mohair silk. Now, sometimes mohair is really hard to unravel because it's so fuzzy and so wonderful that it just doesn't want to come apart. But merino and silk, oh, just lovely, lovely, lovely. What you can do is look for the handmade sweaters, because the handmade, hand knit sweaters are often in the round and will unravel more easily. But you can do that, and it's a portion of the cost. You can do that. What about your tools? What about your knitting needles and stitch markers and all of those wonderful things that we like to have? Now I have this is really cute. I think I paid $2 for this, for my tape measure. I have it sitting at 10, 12, like 12 centimeters right now, because that's what I'm working on in my bag. So I just leave it there. But you can see if I push on the nose, there, isn't that cute? And you can find these in different knit shops and specialty shops, that kind of thing. And stitch markers, I purchased these plastic ones from Amazon, and also some fancier ones. Let me see if I can bring this in. There it is. I love my owls. Stop moving. And they're in different colors. I have angels. I have just a charm. Let me just see if I can bring this one up. These I made myself. There, okay. So those are kind of fun. But you know what? You don't have to be that fancy. What about a paper clip? Just take the paper clip and wrap it through, especially if you've got small ones. They work. If you're using it as a progress keeper, they can go right in. But if you're using it as a stitch marker, where at the beginning of the row, the bigger paper clips work really, really well. And you know as well as I do that those are not expensive. So that's something you can do. The other thing, and you may laugh at this, these are some sock needles I have. There's quite a few of them in there. Knitter's Pride is what they were. And at one of the thrift stores, I always check out the Yarn and Notions area. There was one needle. Just one in this size. And I don't know about you, but I have a tendency of misplacing one needle. And that can be frustrating, especially if it's a favorite brand and you don't want to go out and buy another whole set because you're missing one. No. So finding these odd needles at thrift stores can really save on your pocketbook and on your budget. The other thing I have is this little bag that I bought at the church sale. One of the ladies had sewn it together, and in it, I put all my smaller needles, all my soft needles. I mean, it's probably not a color I would have purchased, and I do want to try making one myself because I have lots of fabric on hand. I might need to buy a zipper or some other kind of closure, but why go out of your way and buy something expensive when you don't need to, right? I'm all about saving in the family budget. And I love to do crafting, and I love to buy yarn, and I love to buy fiber. And fiber work on a budget is another whole video. So I'm not going to go into that so much right now. And I have talked a little bit about that. I'm just checking my notes again. Using tools that are double duty, right? So whether it's your notebook and paper and pen that you write things down, or like I do with my app, I make sure that how many rows did I do on this leg, and I write that down because it may be different than what the pattern suggests even. Which row am I on? Which part of the design am I on? And you can highlight and circle in the Knit Companion. I can't do a tutorial on that, but I really, really do like it. One of the other things I've seen, and I haven't done it yet, where you get one of those hair clips that bend, they put tube. I don't have one, so I can't show you. But when you've got a ball of yarn and you don't want to lose your end because you finished one thing and you want to start the other, you can just clip that on it and it'll hold it in place. How wonderful is that? I mean, it's not expensive. You can buy, a sleeve of 4 or 6 or whatever they come in. I don't know. It's been years since I bought them. The other way to look at that is with a bobby pin. Anybody keep bobby pins in the house anymore? I still do it, and every once in a while, get this stuff away from my face. I'm just thinking here about what else to do on a budget. I think that's everything I wanted to talk about. I do have different pens for different things because I like color and I like to write. So I do have different things for my journals depending on what I'm writing and what I'm doing. And I have stickers. And excuse me, you can go all out. You really can. I mean, you can buy top of the line needles and you can buy top of the line yarn and create projects that are absolutely wonderful. But you know what? You can make wonderful projects while working within a budget. And it doesn't have to be cheap from China, polyester, whatever, right? Although I know a lot of Canadian wool gets shipped to China to be processed. And how sad is that? So Canadians, wool makers, we need to do better. We definitely need to do better. I do also suggest that we support our local yarn store. And I know you may not always find a budget item there, but sometimes if they're down to like 1 or 2 of a colorway and the dye lot is out of stock, they'll mark those down sometimes as much as 50%. So if you're looking for a higher end, check that out. It may not be exactly the color you want it, but it might be close enough. Or maybe it will spark some creativity, right, as we go along. But those are some of the things. So I just want to say to you, keep thrifting, keep knitting, keep being creative. It doesn't have to cost an arm and a leg. Also, check in with the ladies at your local church or the local knitting club or crocheting club, because a lot of them will have yarn that they're just willing to pass on. I know I've received some that are meant for charity mitts and hats and stuff like that, which is wonderful, and I can do that. But it meant that I didn't go out and buy. So there's ways to get around that really tight budget. And if you have ideas about how to create in a budget-friendly manner, please leave a comment below. Let's begin this conversation and create a list, a wonderful list of all the ways that we can save. And maybe in the long run, it'll also save us time because we're not going to be shopping. We're not going to be out in the crowds. Yeah. So if you'd like, remember, this is Doll. I'm Doll from Doll Can Create. I believe that you can. And I'd like you to share this video, do the YouTube things, share it with a fellow frugal knitter or crocheter. And until next time, be a blessing to others as you have been blessed. Take care, friends. See you in the next video.